Canadian made. I'm Canadian. I'm Canadian. Timber. I'm Canadian.
I am Canadian made.
Canada.
Electronic music isn't just about the dance floor. From sequencers to synthesizers like Roland and Moog, electronic instruments revolutionized the recording industry. But what's the Canadian connection?
For Hugh Le Caine, what mattered was the sound. Nothing makes that more obvious than the physical presentation of the Sackbut. It was made out of old packing boards. You could see the wires and the vacuum tubes sticking out the side of it. Note, please leave screwdriver on instrument right at the top there. It actually looks kind of quaint, I think.
The electronic Sackbut was the first variable voltage controlled synthesizer. It was created by Hugh Le Caine. Born in 1914 in Port Arthur, Ontario, he made his own musical instruments as a child. At Queen's University, he tried to balance his two loves, music and physics. At the National Research Council in Ottawa, he worked on the first radar system and wrote papers on atomic physics, but he never gave up making musical instruments. The brass at the NRC became interested in Le Caine's musical hobby.
Originally, Hugh had it down as the touch-sensitive organ. The National Research Council brass sent down a memo that basically said there's no way anything goes out of this building called the touch-sensitive organ.
The electronic Sackbut is named after a medieval instrument, a precursor to the trombone.
Whenever a dignitary came to Ottawa, the dignitary was usually taken to visit the Sackbut. The Sackbut was monophonic. It played only one note at a time, but the amount of variation you could provide within that one note was what mattered.
Hugh got 3 violinists from the symphony to play 3 parts of a violin quartet, and he played the 4th as an overdub on the Sackbut.
The 4 parts played together sound like this.
Nobody that we found could ever tell us which part the Sackbut was playing.
I would pass this big building, and on it said NRC. I pulled into the parking lot, and I went up to the receptionist, and I said, "Could you tell me what you folks do here?" And she looked back at me and said, "Can you tell me what you're doing here?" And I said, "I'm a musician, and I play in a band, but I recently graduated as a physics and mathematics major." And she said, "Oh, you're probably here to see Professor Hugh Le Caine." I basically, without blinking an eye, said, "Yeah." And it was clear that Dr. Hugh Le Caine also must have thought that he had a meeting with me. And he said, "Have you ever had a chance to work with a computer?" This question today now seems very, very strange. I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, that's fantastic. We're just putting together a music research group. Why don't you come here and be part of it? We're allowed to kind of do whatever we want." Hugh Le Caine was building his musical instruments with bubblegum and string and had no interest in really commercializing them himself, whereas Robert Moog built his stuff in a way that was looking for a commercial market, ended up starting a company and manufacturing them.
The Moog and similar electronic devices caught on in the 60s. Bands like the Monkees, the Stones, and the Doors incorporated those crazy sounds. In the 70s, Bowie, Kraftwerk, and The Who experimented with music created entirely on synthesizers. It was the age of electronic instruments.
That was when they attempted to revive the Sackbut and build a new version of it, which is the version that Peter German played.
What I did was provide performer input, if you will. The keyboard actually moves, so you can and the finger stalk on the back lets you go from, say here, so you can actually slide and be in pitch. We can change the bandwidth of the noise, so it's going that's what's giving you that wow, wow, like a wah-wah pedal kind of sound. Amplitude, repeat it with a sub-octave, and a sub-sub-octave.
So what happened to the Sackbut?
The transition from the lab to the factory was the catching point for all of Le Caine's instruments. Perhaps if he hadn't been quite as innovative, there may have been more options for manufacture.
It was around that time that the white paper on science came out. Essentially what it said was government departments shouldn't be involved in development for development's sake. They should only be involved in research and development if asked to do so by a commercial enterprise.
Some bean counter that came in and, saw a line item for the Sackbut. They just said, well, no more of this. And the people who built these other instruments were well aware of Hugh Le Caine and the contributions that he was making.
Can't put it in writing, but I'm sure that they looked at the circuitry for this.
We all build on what other people have done and take it in our own direction, and in turn, we hope that people will build on what we've done.
Le Caine's exhibit at Expo 67 made a lifelong impression on one 15-year-old who went on to become a Canadian digital pioneer. Hugh Le Caine developed creations in a lab that gave birth to a cultural revolution.
I had the luxury of going to Expo 67. I would go back from day to day, check off some more pavilions, and ended up back at Le Caine's thing every now and again. I had to elbow my way to get these headphones on and stand in front of it and twiddle these knobs. It made these crazy electronic sounds. I'd never heard anything like it before.
Greg Hermanovic worked on the Canada Space Arm and has 2 Oscars for developing digital software used in movies like X-Men.
I have a degree in physics, but I really try to build tools for artists. So this is the Sydney Opera House.
Projections were generated and controlled in real time by Touch Designer. Touch is a visual creation and performance tool that connects an input device with a visual effect. By twisting a knob, a user plays with images the same way a musician plays an instrument.
For the Rush tour, we made visuals for about 10 songs. One of our staff went on tour with them, and he was performing the visuals during the songs.
It's been used in stadium shows, galleries, lo-fi art installations, and at research facilities like MIT.
It's all built for drunk PJs.
In Canada, worldwide cultural revolutions start from the most humble places. Kick it, DJ!